What's happening there, man?
What is going on, Bobby?
It is a big Sunday and a lot of weather, huh?
It's always weather, man. It's always weather. Yeah, it's cloudy. Uh, it's gonna rain here in New York later. I don't know if that means anything. Probably not much. But yeah. Do you think weather's gonna impact who you're playing today?
Yeah, a little bit. And I'm curious to get Rhodey's thoughts on this too, because like I always say the same thing. Like I don't really care about weather except for wind. You've got wind in Cleveland, you've got wind in Jacksonville, you've got and a little bit of rain too. Um, it looks like there's some wind in Tennessee, but it should die down a little bit. It looks like a little bit of rain in the Raiders game in Seattle, which I don't think is a huge thing. Denver, Carolina, another game with some wind. Just like a lot of sort of murkiness, and what's kind of tricky about these is I really like Burrow and the Tennessee run back with Burks and obviously why can't I think of the running back's name? Derrick Henry. So it is kind of like a an interesting like what are we going to do about this? And I'm just curious, I'll talk. Let's ask Rhodey, and then let's go back to you, Sheets. Like, Rhodey, what do you think? What do you do in these situations with this weather?
Uh, I mean, I still go off all the projections and everything, so I kind of keep it just kind of, but it's all factored in a little bit. I think they're a little bit lower in projections. I mean, I still like the Burrow game, like you're talking about. I
Mhm.
was a little under on the games you're talking about, like the Tampa Bay. I like White more. I don't like the pass catchers in that game. So I mean, I think about it a little bit, but I just see that they're a little lower in the projection, so that kind of likes me or makes me like those guys less. Is kind of how I factor, but I still sprinkle them in. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sheets, how about you? What are your sort of like main stacks, and are you affected by this weather at all, or do you just like Rhodey think that it's sort of built into the projections?
Yeah, I'm ignoring the weather. Um, so
Fade the
what?
weather.
I'm just ignoring it. Listen,
It is weird that Garrett Wilson, since I started looking at about 2 hours ago, his projected point total is 4.5 points lower than it was. And he's still the second highest projected point per dollar wide receiver. But it's kind of interesting to note that.
So you want to know who I like in the just my
Yeah.
stacks for now?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so on DraftKings, I always have to preface it by that. Um, my top three stacks are Seattle, Cincinnati, and Miami. Um, um, with Chase out, it makes it even easier if you want to know the truth. I mean, Higgins just becomes just the play you make in there, and you could also
Mhm.
like screw around, I think, with other Cincinnati guys also. Not to mention P Ryan, you could use as part of as part of stacks if you wanted to do it that way. But so for me it's Seattle, and again they still have that they have that the two pronged target monsters with Lockett and Metcalf. It's easy to play, and with Walker as well, in a really good game environment. I
Mhm.
think it's a pretty nice easy stack to make. And the Miami thing is just same thing. They listen. Yes, they you have possible game script issues, but nonetheless, I mean they do have a 30-point implied team total, and nobody can stop this team, and Houston can't stop anybody. And that seems to be a recipe for big fantasy points. And the thing that I don't want to say so much of the weather impacts, but remember, like we're getting kind of later in the season, right? And the weather in general is just starting to suck. Whether it's being not as warm as it was, the weather's getting to be whatever, right? Right. What's it? Dehember's coming up soon, right? With Derrick Henry and all that stuff. Maybe a week
Mhm.
early, who knows?
Mhm.
And the point I want to make is that where in earlier parts of the season we need to be sort of greedy with these Miami plays. In other words, like normally I would say, well, I really want to make sure that the game will stay close to get the run back. I think that with points, fantasy points being probably trending lower as the season goes on because of weather and all that stuff, I don't think I'm as worried about that. I'll just kind of, if Miami puts up 30 points, like I'm not really too worried about what Houston's going to put up. You know what I mean? Like I think that
Mhm.
that Hill and Waddle and Wilson and all these guys. I mean, they're not going to just like sit on the ball the whole game. You know, they'll get their points, and I think it's going to be enough on a slate like this to not worry too much about the run backs in situations like that. So those are my three main ones: Seattle, Cincinnati, and Miami. But I would say that I'm not taking an enormous stand. Like I have sprinkles of other teams, but those are my three main ones.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What about you, Rody? What are you doing as far as stacks go?
You kind of know that this is the Chargers week.
I don't even need to ask you. You know what? Chargers, Arizona. That's what Rody's doing. I'll tell you that right now.
Exactly. I am fully loaded in that game today, so that's
Yeah. You know,
I do have
look,
a Burrow
Arizona
stack. I
Go
do
ahead.
have like a Geno, like I do have a couple of those, and a Tua, just like a hedge stack on DK. But I mostly in a Mahomes stack. But I have Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, and majority of my stacks. And then, yeah, that's where we're gonna go.
Yeah, I really like the I like it too. I like the Chargers. And I love Connor today. If he gets overlooked somehow, and it's funny because you have all these running backs projected like just so highly. Like it's like James Conner, if he ends up less than 10% owned, which I think he's going to be right around there. I just feel like this is a great spot for him as a run back in that game, especially on FanDuel. He's like 7K. I think he'll be popular over there, but I like that. It's really hard to always it's always hard to talk me off of a Burrow stack. I don't care. Like it actually doesn't bother me at all to have no what's it called? To have no Chase. I'm a you know, you have no Mixon already, so they're gonna throw the ball, even though like the winds are a little bit annoying. And maybe that just makes I actually think that makes T. Higgins and Hayden Hurst better plays. Tyler Boyd is the guy who, you know, would benefit in general, like, you know, with the long balls and all that. It's probably like maybe the weather is a little bit worse and knocks him down a tiny bit, but I'll still take that chance. And the guy who I talked about last week, but didn't end up playing any of, Trent Irwin in that same game. I think that he's Trenton Irwin. I think he's another one in play at 3K. So I think that there's a lot of ways to build that stack that I really like. So Chargers, Seattle, Bengals are definitely high up there for me. I don't care like enough about the weather to where I'm not going to make any. I'm going to take some Lamar Jackson and I'm assuming Justin Fields is not going to play as of right now. If he warms up and he plays an unowned Justin Fields, even in bad weather, like play him naked. I don't care. He's 7,400. He probably should be the same price as the top quarterbacks. His upside is higher than anybody's. And I really like the idea of just getting a little bit of exposure to both he and Lamar Jackson in games that people are kind of ignoring. And I don't really care if you just play a skinny stack or play them naked. I think that's completely viable on this slate. Let's talk about some positions. Running back, starting with you, Sheets. This is the big thing, right? Like there's so much value. I don't know how good is it with Rachaad White, because Keyshawn Vaughn will take his role, and then he's taking sort of the Fournette role, but it could be Vaughn by the end of the day. Like it's just one of those that I feel like is a little bit shaky. I feel like Lat Murray is extremely shaky. First of all, you need to score. That's what you're counting on him for. You can't. There's no burst. This guy's not going to be running for 30-yard, burst through anything.
Right.
So these are just like the guys I'm just sort of like off. But what are you doing with all this stuff at running back that seems like it's going to gear everyone towards playing the cheap guys?
So I have a couple of takes here. First of all, I don't think that this is the week to be a hero at running back. In other words, I don't think this is the week to just pick one of these guys and think that they're that much better than the other. And I feel as though that's where the industry has kind of gone during the week. I mean, you have Wilson, White, Perrine, and Murray as the cheapos, right? And Kenneth Walker is kind of like the spend up. And instead of just accepting the fact that all four of these are pretty decent plays, like I'm getting like these incredible takes that there's one of them is just like that much worse than the other. And I don't think that that's the way you're supposed to approach these. Me personally, like I'm playing the full 150 today. I'm just shuffling them all. You know what I mean? I'm not taking the stand there. And I would actually like to suggest that if you're playing, even a handful of lineups, I would probably get off the chalkier ones. I would probably get off the White and Wilson and lean more towards the Perrine and Murray, just for no other reason. You know what I mean? That I really just can't make the real case that one is that much better than the other. That's just my opinion. But here's the take I wanna run by you guys. Okay, so why is Jeff Wilson a good play? Well, the reason why Jeff Wilson is a good play is because Miami is a 15-point favorite, whatever they are, right? 15-point favorite. They're at home, and Jeff Wilson, even though he doesn't really get any targets, he gets like all the rushing work, right? So he gets all the rushing work in a 15-point favorite, and this is the kind of the recipe for for being a really, really good running back play, right? And he's like 30% owned. I want somebody to explain to me why, forget the projections for a second, why the exact same thing can't be said for Isaiah Pacheco. Okay, he's 15-point favorite at home, gets now almost all the rushing work, and it's the exact same play. So tell me why Jeff Wilson, if you didn't know anything about the projections, why Jeff Wilson should be 30% owned and Isaiah Pacheco should be 5%.
I'll throw out my take here. I think Jeff Wilson is like, I understand your argument, especially as it relates to ownership. I always like that and there is volatility in all this, and somebody snakes touchdowns and all that. I really have a hard time seeing Jeff Wilson like this is the worst run defense in football that he's facing. Not to mention the 2-touchdown favorite. You lose Mostert, and by the way, Jeff Wilson, even in a split carry situation last week, people are pretty sharp. Still ended up 20% owned last week, and I don't know. I do think Jeff Wilson is significantly better than everyone else in terms of value. I don't think that Pacheco is the same thing, partially because I don't think a Kansas City running back has scored 30 fantasy points in the last 5 since Mahomes has been there. That's one of my big arguments for it, I guess. But I do think Pacheco is in play. I just think I think that I have Wilson as sort of like my automatic guy, and then I'm going to fill in other pieces around him. Like I said, be lower than the field on Murray, significantly lower than the field. And Murray, by the way, I think is going to get more ownership than he's being projected for. And I'll be significantly lower than the field on Rachaad White. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have none of those guys, but I am way lower on them and interested in spending up for guys like Derrick Henry. I'm interested in Kenneth Walker. I'm interested in Perrine. I'm okay with, but I really like David Montgomery, which feels kind of weird to say out loud. And I kind of like Dameon Pierce today. So those are the other guys who and I mentioned already Connor. But I am going to eat the chalk with Jeff Wilson. I'll be over the field on Wilson personally.
Before you turn this over to Rhodey, I just want to I want to say something more about running backs in a minute. But just in the name of transparency, I'm not going to be playing Pacheco in the Millie Maker. I am gonna play 100% of him though in the afternoon slate if I play it. That's all right. Just in the name of transparency. And the other thing I would say about the Jeff Wilson thing is that the vulturing of touchdowns works both ways. You know what I mean? Like Miami. I mean, for Jeff Wilson to score, right? I mean, he's got to run it in, and Tua could just basically just like take Wilson out of play by completing 30-yard touchdown passes to these guys, But I don't know. Those are my takes on running back. Rhodey, where are you? I mean, do you think any of these guys are better than the other ones? You like Jeff Wilson more than the others? Where are you with this?
I mean, sounds like Bobby's talking about a lock here. That was his favorite word today.
Yeah, I didn't say lock. I probably will have him in over 50% of my lineups though. Go ahead.
I think he's a really good play. I don't have any Pacheco. I just think, like Bobby says, like the running backs for them hard. I mean, CH had like 25 one day with 2 touchdowns, and that was the best he ever had. And that was like last year one time. But the last few years, I mean, there's hardly a running back wins from KC. I really like White today, like in that game, because of the weather. I mean, some of this ball is going to be on the ground more if it's windy. I like these running backs a little bit. Kenneth Walker, I really like in that game. I mean, he looks good. I don't think Vegas is that great. I think he'll be able to break some runs. And, obviously I'm playing some Austin Eckler. I think he's going to be low and expensive. The problem I have is the price of these guys. I mean, I feel like I have to play these guys because of the price. I mean, Derrick Henry and these expensive running backs are going to have to get like really high points to be good, because I mean a 5K running back on DK could score 20 points. Derrick Henry might end up with 35, but like he's $3,000 more. You
Mhm.
know, like you're and he's only 15-point difference. And now that guy that with 20 points with Rashad White, he's got Hopkins that's got 40. He's got, one of these receivers that go off, with the Miami receivers expensive too. Like some of these stacks are hard to get, these expensive receivers, without playing, some of these value backs, but you just kind of got to get different if you want to. I like the spend up running backs too, but like I'm kind of mixing one of the cheap guys with one of the spend ups, in my builds. And I like the chalk guys today. That's where
Mhm.
I'm at.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes some sense. I think that one thing I would point out though is that like we have at least like possible value at wide receiver today more than we've had. We have like you have Garrett Wilson. I know the weather is not great, but 4,300. I love Burks as part of the stack, and if you're going to make the Cincinnati thing again, weather not great. And you've got yeah, I mean you have other guys you can mix in, like you have all the KC guys, Zay Jones, Robert Woods, Kendall Hinton is another one that's popping off for a little bit. Nico Collins. I think there's enough like where you could decide to try to find a way to spend money. Yeah. Anyway, that's that. I think paying up at running back is going to be the less preferred option, and I think that is just people aren't going to do it. I think Eckler of all the guys will be the most owned, but I think that it's still low enough to where I'm kind of interested in maybe building that way. And we got Poker X Factor asking Burrow with Higgins or Boyd. If you play Burrow in general, you want him with at least two receivers, like maybe three and the running back. Like when they hit with everybody. You know what I mean? There's that's a double, triple stack receiving position for me, and we're going to transfer over to wide receiver now. Rody, why don't you talk first about some of the receivers you like, whether you like the value. I know already we're going to hear Keenan Allen come out of your mouth, so we know that's coming. But what else have you got for us?
Yeah, I mean Keenan Allen, obviously, but like, yeah, I like a lot of other guys today. I think like like Juju, like you mentioned, Casey, some of the cheap receivers there you can use. Like Juju's coming back today. You got Marquise Brown in that return game. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be limited or not. Some of these guys could be limited, but I mean that doesn't mean they don't get their workload. I mean, Juju and Marquise Brown were both seeing good target volume before they went out, but I mean Hopkins is there now. And Casey spreads it around a little bit. Just got to get the right guy there. Tyler Boyd's another cheap one I really like today. You got DK and Lockett in that game that Sheets likes to stack up. Terry McLaurin's another cheap option you can throw in there that I really like today. I do like Burks a lot more than Wilson. I was liking Wilson a lot more when I started building lineups, and then I realized how chalky was. He's starting to project a little bit more chalky, and his points did come down from the weather a little bit. And I mean, he really hasn't had. He's had a big game against this team last time, but I don't know. I mean, I think Burks is a better option today, less ownership. And DPJ in that Cleveland game is pretty cheap. Again, to run it back with Rashad White correlation, I like. No one's playing DJ Moore against Denver if you're running a correlation with Murray and him. And then, yeah, I don't really. Are you playing anybody from like, that Irwin guy, that cheap? I like him at 3K. I don't know which Rams receiver is going to end up getting any love, if any. I don't think we can go there, but I know you talked Van Jefferson last week. One of these guys got to catch a ball today or something, Bench Rock or Van Jefferson.
You think at some point, right?
I know Atwell got the one last week. So like that one's just where if you're doing like 150, maybe you sprinkle those guys in a few percent, hoping one guy's got like a cheap guy gets 15 or something. But yeah, I'm pretty much staying to my stacks this week. And I really like those guys. I'm actually light on Tyreek Hill. I think the Miami guys are just so pricey today. It's just really hard to get these builds to work with those guys. And I'm just kind of sprinkling in those 6 to mid-range receivers that I like today.
Yeah, I hear you. I want to just throw out that I do think that one way to get around Jeff Wilson chalk is just to play the Miami passing game. I said that early in the week. I still stand by it. Sheets, what are you doing at receiver for the most part? What are you? Who are you high on?
So my highest owned guys are T. Higgins and DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think I need to sell anybody on why those are good plays. T. Higgins without Chase, and all the Burrow, and we talked about this, and I think he's he's an awesome play. DeAndre Hopkins, he just has like a 147% target share since he's been back. And Kyler Murray is back this week, and he's just gonna throw the ball to him every time he goes back to pass. I mean, he should be 9K, right? I mean, this is the deal. And Tyreek Hill, I mean, I really don't know why people. I mean, people are playing him. I imagine. I mean, this is
they've got to.
I mean, the reason why you have these running backs at 5K. I mean, you can get Tyreek Hill for 40-point freaking upside, like you keep talking about, right, Bobby? I mean, like these are the guys that can get 40, and if you can get these guys in with these running backs, the running backs can score 12 fantasy points. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Because you can get 40 out of these wide receivers, and there are very few games with decent weather, and you get Tyreek Hill who runs 100 miles an hour. You know what I mean? Like it's these are the guys you want to kind of get in. Garrett Wilson, I'll just caution you guys. I mean, like, and I've ranted about the Jets the last couple of weeks. I mean, they took Zach Wilson out, okay, literally for no reason. I mean, like, we'll talk. That's another story. This guy Mike White is literally the worst, okay, and you're getting a chalky Garrett Wilson. Listen, there's something to be said about having somebody that can actually throw you the ball. You know what I mean? In a situation where you can generate these fantasy points. Not to mention the weather. I mean, if I told like an average person this play, they're like, you got to be out of your freaking mind, okay? And nonetheless, I mean, listen, he's only 4,300, and listen, the guy's got to throw it somewhere. So I guess I'm gonna probably be with the field with him or whatever. But it just seems like such an awful play. Keenan Allen, you mentioned. Tyler Lockett, you mentioned. I don't know I guess you guys mentioned DJ Moore. The guys also in that game, I think Terrace Marshall is back. He's cheap. McLaurin, you mentioned. I'm trying to just come up with guys you didn't mention. Nico Collins could be a run back in that Miami game. I actually have a full 10% of him, actually. You guys already mentioned Treylon Burks. Devontae Adams, who if you haven't mentioned him already, I mean, obviously he's a good play. You guys already mentioned Trenton Irwin. I have a full 10% of Trenton Irwin, by the way, at 3K. Tyler Boyd, you mentioned. Matt Hollins is cheap. There's a team that we haven't talked about, and I didn't come up with the receivers or the quarterback or whatever. Do any of you have any interest in Tampa at all? I mean, I didn't get to literally any of it except for the running back. I maybe have like 3% of like the receivers. I don't like to play Tampa in general. Any of you get to him, but aside from that, I really don't bet anything super fancy at wide receiver that you guys didn't talk about already.
Yeah, I actually think that you're making kind of an interesting point here. Rody, why aren't we playing some Tampa? I know the weather is not great, but like they throw the ball a lot. Fournette's out. You have reasonably priced Godwin, reasonably priced Evans. You have the tight end in Otten. You could go Braid if you want to. I guess that's a little too creative, probably. But I just think that maybe there's a point to that, Sheets. Like I do think there's some argument there. Rody, do you think that we're maybe just missing it? Like maybe I'm not playing a little bit of Tampa stacks. I know they're probably not going to pop off, but what do you think?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of bad talk about Tampa stacks today. I mean, a lot of people are like talking really like you're going to play that like really like
but nobody's playing
scolding people for playing that game. I don't know. I just haven't really thought about that game. I'm not on that game. I think Cleveland slows the game down a little bit. I know.
Do they?
I don't know the weather's, but I mean, Cleveland's been playing a little up pace, but maybe, I don't know. I'm off that game totally today, except maybe some Donovan People-Jones or Njoku type plays, but I don't know. I don't know why, but not.
Yeah, I see the weather is nasty and all that stuff.
Oh, it is. Okay.
I think that still though, I'm kind of intrigued by this, so I'm gonna have to throw that in at least a millionaire maker lineup or two.
I mean, I got a ton of Rachaad White, so maybe that's why I'm not playing the passing game as much. And then it's really windy there, really windy, so it's one of the bad ones. So,
yeah. Well, let's move over to some of the things that I like to focus. One of the things I love in windy games, I love playing tight ends in windy games because you're going to have a lot more dump downs. I think there is actually something like I actually really like Tyler Conklin today. I like Hayden Hurst because he's part of my stacks. I think he's going to be pretty popular. And then you've got the Andrews Kelsey who just can win the position by 30 points, like each of them, 30 maybe exaggerating, 25. What are you guys doing at tight end? Starting with you, Sheets.
Yeah, I don't think I want to play Kelsey today that much. Just because, like I said, I mean, this is. Listen, you talk about game script and all this stuff. I think that this just feels like Mahomes just kind of just throws it around to like different people or something. I don't know about for Kelsey to really get there. You really kind of need like 2 touchdowns if you want to know the truth. Or like a lot of yards. I'm not really getting to him. My actually highest owned tight end, it's not by a lot, is and you can imagine it's because the run back in the Seattle game is Foster Moreau. He always projects decently, and he's always good enough. I'm not really trying to get too much done out of this. I would prefer, instead of playing Kelsey, I would prefer to play Andrews than Kelsey. I think that he's going to be more leaned on, for example, than Kelsey would necessarily be in that game. So I like Andrews better. You mentioned Hurst. Dulcich always looks decent. Gesicki is part of your Miami stacks. You mentioned Tyler Conklin. I do like that. And again, if you're going to stack the Seattle game, it's certainly nothing wrong with sticking some Noah Fant in there also. So those are the only guys that will have actually more than 5% of as far as tight ends go.
Interesting. I actually didn't get to Kelsey in my early builds either, outside of a Mahomes stack where I have him with 2 receivers and Mahomes just in the KC go off kind of situation. Brody, what do you get into at tight end today?
Yeah, I just been sprinkling in these cheaper guys. Eifert's pretty cheap. I like Hayden Hurst, like you talked about earlier. I think he's going to be in a good play. That Greg Dulcich, he's popping. He's volume based. I did a 2 stack, and I did put Mike Gesicki in there. We've talked about him in the past. He scored touchdowns. So if you want to get off, the expensive Hill or Waddle, I usually pair one of those guys with him though. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm keeping to the top really with those guys and kind of sprinkling them in. I do have some Andrews and Kelsey a little bit, but Kelsey only in the Mahomes stack, and then Andrews I sprinkled in a little bit where I played some of those cheap receivers like a Irwin or something like that where I could fit him in a little bit. So,
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I do think that, by the way, we got BBF in chat saying here Austin Hooper. I think that actually is viable. As well. And what was the other thing that I saw in chat that was interesting? Oh, you know what? I wanted to answer K9's question about the FanDuel stacks. I don't think it's all that different. I personally have the Chargers as my number 1 stack on FanDuel. Am I missing anybody have anything different on FanDuel than DraftKings today?
Why don't you go first, Brody? I'm just finishing something up, but I do want to answer that about FanDuel.
Yeah, she's probably going to have a better answer on FanDuel. I'm not playing that many lineups over there, so I'm very heavy Chargers. I can't decide. I got like 3 or 4 built right now. I can't decide which ones I'm putting in. I might just load them and putting them all in. I think Lamar Jackson's a little cheaper over there, so maybe like a Lamar to Andrews stack or something would be ideal. I mean, obviously nobody's probably playing Mahomes over there at 9K. He's a little bit more expensive. Is Kyler's price 7.8? Yeah, I'd rather play Herbert 7.8 and 7.9. I'm getting very good price on value on that Chargers Arizona game. So both sides of that I like. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm going to go over there.
All right. So for me, I am a little bit different over on FanDuel. My highest owned stack on FanDuel is actually Baltimore.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah, a little bit more than Seattle. So Baltimore, then Seattle, and then you say people aren't going to play that in KC. I have KC is actually higher owned for me than Miami over there. So I actually have KC, believe it or not, more on FanDuel than on DraftKings. Oddly, I guess. So I have more Baltimore, Seattle, KC, Miami, and the Chargers, kind of like a big glut of those 5. But that the most important, I guess, takeaway is that I'm getting more Baltimore over there. And now that you're bringing it up as, other stuff on FanDuel that might be different, at least for me, not anything actually to speak of. I have actually a little more Rachaad White on FanDuel than DraftKings. A little more Latavius Murray on FanDuel than DraftKings. Just the way my builds worked out. Everything else is pretty much the same.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty similar for me too. But I do hear some of the things you're saying. I do think it's an interesting question here from Poker X Factor. I'm guessing it's Scott. What's up, Scott? Marquise Brown is coming back. He's 5,300. I know that it's all been does this at least lower some interest in DeAndre Hopkins, who I love, by the way, anyway? But does it lower some interest with Marquise Brown back and available? And should we play some Marquise Brown in some of these stacks? Rody, I know I'll start with you because you're the one who's on this game as well. What are you doing with that situation?
Yeah, I'm playing Brown some. Yeah, I'm gonna take a shot at it. It's probably a little risky, so just be ready to lose with me. But yeah, we're gonna take some shots on Brown. So I do like Hopkins. I got Brown and Hopkins mixed in a lot. So just kind of mixing them where they fit. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I actually the more I think about it, what Brown does for me here is I actually think that I might have to play some Arizona stacks to mix with my Charger stacks. I think that Kyler at 6,800, if you saw that before the year, Justin Fields, by the way, officially inactive. I actually think Kyler with a Brown Hopkins is kind of interesting to me. They might have to throw it a bunch. I don't know. I could see that actually being like an interesting, like, I don't know, stack to go on the other side. Sheets, what do you think about Brown? And then are you? I know you have some Chargers, like you said, but are you playing any Arizona?
Yeah, I have 150 lineups on DraftKings. I don't have a single Marquise Brown lineup. That's where I'm at. And I am playing a bunch of Arizona, but I'm doing the moto play. I'm going with DeAndre Hopkins. And let me just see. I mean, since you brought it up, I actually have a couple of I have a couple of old man AJ Greens at 3,400 in there.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And aside from that, that's literally the only receivers I have in Arizona. But I do like that Connor play that you brought up. You know who I have? Oh, this is sick. I'm going. I actually have a couple of lineups with the once and future showdown play Trey McBride from Arizona. At 3,100. But Connor, AJ Green, and yeah, those are my offensive guys from Arizona. I didn't get to Marquise Brown.
Yeah, I hear you. Still pissed off about the Steven Anderson dropping that ball on the 50-yard touchdown pass to start that other game, and that would have been massive for me because I had him in all my showdowns. So he was my showdown guy, even though I get the McBride play though for sure. And K9's asking any love for Gibson at 6,100. I absolutely would get some Gibson if I was playing. If I was playing 10 lineups, I think Gibson would be in 2 of them on FanDuel. I actually think that's a really good play at 6,100. It's just way, way, way too cheap. And there is a lot of touchdown upside for Gibson there. Let's real quickly talk about defenses. We know what the chalk's going to be, Sheets, and I know you hate this. There is no other defense projected above 10%. I guess actually using yours and Goldie's projections, I think are a little more accurate. You got the Jets who are going to I think they're actually going to be a little higher than they're being projected for because of the weather in the game, and then you have no fields officially. So I think it's going to be Jets and Chiefs everywhere, which I know means Sheets is going to be well below the field on both the Jets and the Chiefs. Rody, what are you doing at defense? Then we'll jump over to Sheets.
Yeah, I actually like the Jets today, but I thought the Jets you said they're higher owned?
They're going to be. They're going to pop. They're going to keep popping. Now that you get Fields officially inactive, all the projections are going to start.
I guess that came a little early. Yeah, I was already on the Jets a little bit. I was trying to get to them more, but it's harder to get up to that 3,300 than it is at 2,800 Chiefs, though.
Yeah.
Just letting you guys know when you're building. Yeah, I like those. I even like some cheaper defenses. I like the Browns. A little bit too in that Tampa game with that weather. You never know. Throw a turnover, ball catches, or pick six. They're 2,700, so it's just right there, different from the Chiefs price. I'm kind of sprinkling it around a little bit. I even like Washington Atlanta game a little bit bad. Atlanta's kind of cheap. They're 2,900. They're 100 above the Chiefs. So like I'm kind of getting those 3K defenses in there a little bit. I even had a Texans against Miami just in case they do something crazy. because they have in the past, a pick six or something or fumble. They're the cheapest ones of the day. I have one lineup, but I mean, just to sprinkle them all in, I just kind of try to pick a different defense. I do have some Broncos a little bit too. So like I'm kind of all over the place today. Those are some of my favorites. So
yeah, it makes a lot of. I actually like some of the ones you mentioned too, and I like going cheaper. I think the Browns one makes a lot of sense. And I'm at 20% on the Chiefs right now. I might lower it down to 10 by the end of this because I don't like Sheets. I don't like playing chalky defenses. It is hard to ignore the 2,800 against a Rams team that I just don't. I mean, I don't know how they move the ball. Like I really don't know how they do anything. And I think there's opportunities for I don't know. It's not quite a defense where it's like, oh, if you don't play, it's rare to say a defense if you don't play them, they're going to kill you or whatever. But this is a team I actually think they should be projected for double digits. I just don't know how the Rams do anything at all, and I expect to see some turnovers. I don't know. Sheets, what are you doing on defense?
Yeah, I think both the Jets and the Chiefs stand out. So for me, I'm gonna just get the max that I'll play of both of them, and that would be 20%. I can't play more than 20% of a defense. I can't do it. But I think both those plays look really, really good. And the next highest that I have, it's kind of interesting. I have Jacksonville against Baltimore. They're pretty opportunistic, whatever. I'll take a shot at 2,500. Panthers are always kind of stout, and at 3K, I don't think people will go there that much. And the rest I'm just kind of basically spread out all over the place. I mean, nothing big. I want to address K9, by the way. I have just way too much Antonio Gibson on FanDuel. I have like 20% of him. It just feels so awful. It just does. I just still remember those when Brian Robinson got 20 freaking carries. How do you play 20% of a guy when you don't even know if he's going to be the top dude on the team? I mean, I don't know.
Yep. I hear you, but he did have 18 carries last week and always gets work in the passing game, which obviously is not as good for FanDuel, but should be some touchdown upside against the Falcons today. So I actually like it. I don't have a problem with being high on Gibson personally, on FanDuel especially.
Okay, that's good.
So wait, Goldie's talking about the Jags. Okay, so
that's what I just said. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and so it's Goldie and Sheets. Rody, are you doing anything with the Jags today?
Like for defense wise, I have them in one, but I didn't want to say that because I do like some Lamar stacks. So
yeah, I like some Lamar stacks, but I actually think that game, it is a little.
Oh, you're talking all the whole game?
Well, yeah, okay, defense and then the whole game. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I've always liked Christian Kirk. I think he's got a decent price. Yeah, I might sprinkle him in one, but Ingram was propping a little bit on DK as a 3-2 tight end that I put in my playbook today, guys, on True DFS site if you guys are on there. A couple other things I did, but yeah, I like the Baltimore Andrews. I just trying to find a run back in that game. I just like.
Oh, I have one for you, by the way, on FanDuel. My highest owned defense on FanDuel, like by a lot, is Miami against Houston.
Yeah, they feels like they're always a little too cheap. And just jumping on the Miami thing, Sheets, how much of we didn't really talk about their pass. Like, how much of the passing game are you playing? What do you have? What percentage of?
I have like 25%, like Hill, and it's only because I artificially made him lower. I mean, I was going to get 40% of him.
I'm good with that. I mean, it makes sense to me. One guy I don't want to forget to mention today, just before we, because I do like Miami for what it's worth. I really like the. I think this is a bold call here, and I don't feel good about it. I think this is the day that Noah Fant is the highest scoring tight end, and I forgot to mention it before.
Yeah,
I like Fant and Conklin. I think this is the one for him. Finally going to have a game for the guy you traded whatever for.
I don't like as far as having a really big game. I do like Fant a lot more than Conklin. Fant can actually get into open field. You know what I mean? Like do something. Conklin's good. Listen, Conklin's good. He doesn't drop anything, and he certainly has touchdown upside. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I definitely think Fant is more dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Rody, are you getting to any Fant at all?
Yeah, I mean he's at that same price range on DK that I liked. But oh man, I didn't pull the trigger at that 3,200. Maybe I like Walker a lot. Maybe I can pair him with Walker. It was one of the pass catcher. I like that price. I mean, that's at Hayden Hurst, McBride, Fan Ingram, Hooper's right there, McConklin. All that price is real good, guys. I mean, I'd sprinkle those guys all in. That's a great price tag in there.
Yeah.
Spot
Yeah,
for
I
a tight
got
end.
All right. Well, we're coming towards the end here. So any questions, fire on them on in. Sheets, any other takes that you haven't mentioned or anything that you've got that maybe we haven't covered so far?
Not really. I think that it's going to be, like I said, especially with the weather and all this stuff. I think it could be kind of a lower scoring slate. And so if you're building, actually, I do want to talk about Yahoo for a second. So if you're building on, like, for example, SaberSim, what I would say again is if you're getting to, say, like quarterback with 2, like, I wouldn't necessarily, like, again, I'll repeat this. I wouldn't demand to have a run back. I think that you could just play, like, if you get to, like, I'll use this one as an example again, to the Miami, like, double stack or whatever it is, I would not worry too much if I didn't get a run back from the other team. I just think that you're not going to need 240 points. I think that 200 will do it this week. I guess that's my overall thing. And again, with the defenses, I mean, I will say, as you kind of pointed out, I mean, these are two. I mean, I think those are, like, as good of a spots as you're going to get. You get a cheap price tag. You're at home against a terrible quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, this is, well, I shouldn't say terrible quarterback. The only thing that would concern me about, not the only thing, but to play the Kansas City guy, is that from what I've heard, the quarterback they're starting for the Rams is just almost a pure rushing quarterback.
Basically.
And if that's the case, that's not exactly the greatest environment to play, like, a defense. If at huge ownership, because listen, if you play a defense at big ownership, if they don't get, like, 15 points, you're, like, not happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not getting 15 points without some kind of, like, lot of picks, like interceptions, fumbles, or whatever it is. And listen, what's his name? McVay he was freaking conservative when he had all his players. I can't even imagine what he's going to try to accomplish in this game. I mean, he might just literally run the ball every freaking play and not mind losing by 20 that way. I don't know.
Yeah. I actually kind of think that's actually a good justification of why you don't want to play with them. I think that you're right. And the Rams, look, they haven't been able to run the ball all year, so they're going to put a running quarterback in to try and see if they can do something finally. Rody, anything else that you didn't mention? I'm going to go after you go. I'm going to just mention what I've changed throughout the show that maybe I'm a little higher on than I was before. Go ahead, Rody.
Yeah, the only thing I might get a little bit more is that I do like that fan call. I'm kind of squeezing in some last minute lineups there in that game. But yeah, pretty much I like everything, that I said before, and I'm kind of taking stands as I always do. And, you either watch your guys smash and you're doing good, or I'm going to be watching other guys smash and I don't have any of them. So that's been lately how it goes. So I like
I actually do want to just add a couple of things, just because, again, I did play Yahoo. So, and I did mention to anybody who took a piece of Stake Kings that we'd be doing this live stream. I'd go over who I like. On Yahoo, I actually have, it's pretty much the same. Seattle's top stack, then Baltimore, LAC. Ooh, I have a little more Tennessee actually on Yahoo, for whatever that's worth. Probably is just always a function of the price. And as far as plays on Yahoo as opposed to the others, believe it or not, my top overall owned guy is Devontae Adams, of all things.
That was a question that came in the chat. I'm happy you touched on that, because I love Devontae Adams, and I forgot to mention that earlier. So I love that, Rody. I love that, Sheets.
Okay. And yeah, that's pretty much it. For those of you that are following along, I mean, we'll be putting up, I'll be putting up the showdown sheets probably after the games are over today. You know what I mean? Like probably like 7:30, whatever it is. But in plenty of time, because I'm definitely playing it, because I already have to plan on getting back the losses I'm going to make today. And also for those of you that are going to be playing NBA and NHL, that will all be up. There's 2 NBA slates. There's a 3 p.m. and a 6 p.m. I'm not going to be able to put up the 3 p.m., but I'll be able to put up the 6 p.m. And NHL is at 7. I will be able to put that up as well. And that's about it. You know, again, we threaten to do this a lot, but like if either of us or anybody in this community is live, and there's a goal for somebody, is if anybody is live at you know, going into like the second half of the second, you know, games or whatever, ping us online, you know what I mean? Or ping us in the Discord. Maybe we'll go some emergency live stream, you know what I mean? Yep. And sweat that home.
Absolutely. I would love to do that if there's anything to go. And by the way, can we just touch on soccer for a second? Like or football, sorry, the World Cup. It is kind of bizarre. Like usually the World Cup, you don't see these teams like Morocco winning games usually. You know what I mean? I feel like there's more upsets like in all of sports than there's ever been. Am I totally crazy, or am I just too NBA influenced?
I'd actually like to say something different about it. So I would like to say from a DFS perspective, you know, again, I never really followed soccer, you know, especially from the gambling aspect. And, you know, and I did play EPL this year, you know, using Chance, whatever. And for whatever reason, the EPL sweats, I just never got into, you know what I mean? I couldn't quite figure out why. And I did figure out why. And the reason why the World Cup is so much better, at least for me, like when the EPL, you have 4 games at the same time, and like only one's on TV, and like the other 3 you have to have on your and I honestly can't follow it all at the same time. Like I don't know exactly who I'm rooting for. I don't know exactly where the guys are, and it's kind of hard. With these World Cups, the way they stagger them, it's literally perfect. You know, you have, it's not like over the course of 100 hours, right? It's 3 games. What it is, the lineups come out an hour before. Then there's a game. And then you have like and it's one game everybody's watching. I know exactly who I'm rooting for. And I'm starting to learn the players by watching them, and I know exactly what I'm rooting for. And then there's like a half hour at least between one game and the other where the lineups are already out. You could do your late swap. And the same thing between game 2 and 3. And I find it a very, very pleasant, you know, more engaging sweat than the normal soccer sweats. I guess it's kind of like the NBA Christmas slate. You know what I mean? Like where you have the games like one after the other. For me, like soccer, like not knowing instinctively like who's doing well without really gazing at it, I'm actually quite enjoying the World Cup sweat. And I had a really big day in it yesterday. Actually, nice. 2 days ago. I'm probably about even with it since it started. And it's I do find it kind of an interesting sport, the way it's set up for the World Cup.
Yeah, I like that too as well. And we'll get out of here so we can finish building lineups, and Rody can finish back and see Rody already. Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? How do I play 200? How do I play 200% of the Chargers? I can't figure out a way to do it mathematically.
I'm adding more lineups because I can't.
Hey, you know, I have one other question before I let you go. And it's more for Rody. You mentioned this is like kind of a portfolio thing. Is you mentioned in your Discord thing that you put up the playbook, and you said, I want to kind of quote this. I want to ask you about this. This is the kind of thing that actually is really interesting to me. You said, good read today, your playbook. Also, as always, I talk cash at all positions if you're running that to hedge GPPs. Do you actually think about it that way? I mean, do you like create your cash lineups with knowledge of what you're going to do in GPPs, or is it more you create your cash lineup to kind of just to create a low variance approach to the slate to offset the variance that's associated with GPPs? Like, do you consider who is in your GPP lineups to determine who you're playing in cash, or the opposite? Do you figure out who you're playing in cash to figure out how to play your GPPs, or you just like set up cash lineups and set up GPP lineups without one caring about the other?
Yeah, I just set it all up for cash. I just hit optimize and then go. I've been playing a little bit. I usually play a little bit every year of cash with just small volume. But like I just hit optimize on the optimizer and wrote.
No, I know that. But what you mean, like you using to say?
Oh, I'm using a lot of the same guys. Sometimes they're different. Sometimes they're the same. I don't ever like a lot of Rashad White. Like if he's in my cash, I got a ton of him, or Wilson. Like he's in almost all the lineup. He'll be in my cash. I don't like, Wilson's in my cash, so I should fade Wilson in my GPPs now.
No, okay.
I don't do that.
So, but your comment that like I talk cash, if you're running that to hedge GPPs, are you suggesting maybe that playing cash to hedge GPPs in general is a good idea, or
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like just
Okay.
like playing a little cash to if you're getting crazy, like crazy, like the low floor, like you talked about.
because it's
Like just
interesting
getting
because
that
back in
floor.
the and again I don't want to spend too much time this we have to go obviously, but we'll talk about this another time. But like remember in poker, when I was doing poker, the big business model that people would always put out there is if you're really good at all types of poker, is you would play cash to kind of like just generate income, and the hope to make enough from cash to offset like the massive variance that is inherent in multis in tournaments. And I imagine that's very similar
Very similar, yeah.
to playing DFS, is that the people that are really good at both will play cash to generate enough kind of steady income to offset the swings in GPPs, I imagine.
Yeah, that's exactly what I kind of do. And I've actually had a couple big cash lineups this year where a couple of big optimals went way to the top. And I mean, I was top 20 and I'd put in some smaller single entries and I was like almost shipping them like for
Yeah.
the money. So I had a couple good profitable cash lineups this year. So I always kind of do that to kind of get back some of the winnings if I don't have a good GPP week too. So
How could you
I
not
like
have
that.
a good GPP week?
We're gonna have a good one this week. Chargers, baby.
All right, so we're gonna say that we're gonna now we have enough time. If you wouldn't mind, I'll do this. I'll do this, Bobby. So to send us off, Mr. Rohde, would you have anything you'd like to say?
Let's get it.
Let's go.
Let's go. I like that, Sheets.